Have you spent much time talking to regulators about this?
We've spent a lot of time talking to regulators.
Okay.
And so
what do they feel?
They are extremely pro.
Okay.
So we've had a number of conversations with individuals at the EPA. So, actual government employees at the EPA who are very, very pro this solution. This would, like, us presenting that to them, was also an educational thing.
Mm-hmm.
The EPA is very dedicated to getting rid of methane, and they have, various programs that are, trying to get people to develop landfills into, revenue producing projects. But the lens through which they look at that is through traditional projects. So power plants or natural gas refineries, right? And so they even have a calculator that you can say, hey, like, you can enter all your landfill data, and here's the average cost that you can, sell your power to, and here's the average cost that it takes to build up a power plant. And so you can use their calculator that they have on their website, enter all the data, and you can see that no landfill actually ever pencils out. So,
yeah.
So really, Bitcoin mining is the solution to landfill flaring and landfill methane.
It's so interesting how mining has been this thing that's been attacked as being unfriendly to the environment. We don't have to get into the arguments around it, but there is a distorted opinion of how unfriendly Bitcoin mining is for the environment. And what you have done and things that Troy is looking at, and there seems to be this real move towards actually now mining. Not only does mining not have to use fossil fuels, it can actually do things positive for the environment. It can actually be a net reducer of emissions,
mm-hmm.
which is going to be crazy difficult for those people who hate Bitcoin, who are using the FUD as a reason to regulate it or get rid of it, because they're kind of fucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's
Elizabeth Warren.
There's literally no angle that anybody can take with Vespine and say that you guys are doing something negative.
They will find something.
I will welcome them to try.
They will find something. They always do.
Because if you look at it from an environmental perspective, I mean, it's very clear that finding a way to mitigate methane is of prime importance, right? And that you can't regulate away a problem. You have to provide a carrot instead of a stick. And then from a social perspective, you can't say that having revenue to a community by virtue of utilizing the methane is a bad thing. So that's part of the messaging, is that we want to change the narrative around Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin miners and Bitcoiners, we know what the narrative is and what it needs to be. We want to disseminate that information on a grassroots level so it's understood.
And in doing this, what you're going to be also doing is adding people to the army of Bitcoin proponents who protect it. So in scenarios where, like those 26 idiots wrote the letter to Congress about why Bitcoin's terrible and it has no utility and it's a problem trying to find a solution, those people end up looking kind of stupid here, and their impact is going to be reduced because, if people just try to unilaterally cause problems for Bitcoin, they're going to be causing problems for the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And now, not only are they causing problems for the environment, but they're also causing problems for an army of municipalities scattered around the country in liberal states and in conservative states. So it doesn't matter where that state is located and what jurisdiction it's located. The net benefit is the same and is very clear.
Well, we have a little bit of a bent towards red states being kind of a bit more positive towards Bitcoin at the moment, but I think there's clearly a need to push this more. We could do with a few more kind of Democratic senators.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why we're starting in California, to be honest. I mean, we want to set the precedent in the place where there is the highest and most stringent regulations around environmental issues, and use that as a springboard to go into other markets.
I think Schellenberger would have liked this. Shame he didn't do.
Do
too well.
You mentioned also. So you asked about regulators and whether we've spoken to them. So on our advisory board, we have an individual who was formerly with the EPA. So we have people with actual boots on the ground experience in government, helping to direct our mission.
And then there's a whole education side.
Yeah, I mean, there's an education side. So as I mentioned, one of the questions that obviously that gets asked is, why, how do you know that there's Bitcoin here on the landfill?
Yeah, I love that. That's my favorite thing.
And so, getting through that type of education is sort of the first step, and just having people understand kind of what Bitcoin is and what, why Bitcoin mining works, and why you can, how you can monetize stranded methane without needing a grid connection. So there is a substantial kind of education, process, but we're sort of happy to do that, and that's part of our mission is to provide that education kind of at a location by location level.
Are there any other industries that this is transferable to?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned other sources of methane, right? So there's and there's been pioneers in the Bitcoin mining industry, Crusoe Energy primarily, that is that's looking at methane produced in oil and gas, and so oil and gas major contributor to methane. There's no doubt about it, but it's easy as the mainstream media, it's really easy to take a negative viewpoint on that, because you think, well, if we weren't drilling for oil, we wouldn't be creating the methane in the first place. And so it's sort of really easy, and it's sort of a low-hanging fruit for, even though as Bitcoiners and Bitcoin miners, we know that they're making a measurable impact on climate change by mitigating that methane. But aligning anything with an oil company can come with a negative connotation, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're here to help kind of bolster that mission by adding on landfills to that narrative, and saying that landfills are also a producer of methane, just having people understand that, but also to show that Bitcoin mining can have a very measurable impact.
And when you're thinking, when you're at home and you're thinking about this long term, you're thinking, I'm onto something here, and you get the pilot site going, you've got 10 more lined up. How far ahead are you thinking about this internationally, or are you already preparing for that? Because I'm imagining in some of the international sites, you could probably even get the power cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, we are in active conversations with 2 different international jurisdictions, one in Southeast Asia and the other in South America.
So okay, wow.
And so these would involve not only landfills, but other sources of methane. And so primarily in Southeast Asia, I think I mentioned this earlier, but palm oil processing creates a ton of methane byproduct.
Okay.
And that's because all of the biomass that's used in that processing essentially just goes into a trash heap, and essentially degrades and decomposes, and methane is one of the gases that's produced. And so far away from city centers, no other way to capture that methane and produce value. So Bitcoin mining comes in, sets up shop, at the palm oil refinery, and provides additional incentive, monetary incentive to capture the methane, which then leads to an environmental incentive.
There's so much incentive once this works to scale this fast.
Yes.
What are the biggest scaling challenges outside of capital?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that so capital is definitely an issue. I think that the other one is because landfills are decentralized. So landfills are split up into public and private operators. So there's 2 big private landfill operators in the United States, Waste Management and Republic Services. And those 2 private operators represent sort of the lion's share of the private sector. So landfills are split up about 50-50 in terms of 50% is publicly owned and operated, and then 50% is still publicly owned but privately operated. And so I think one of the main challenges to scale is to have those sort of boots on the ground conversations with all of these decentralized entities. And so that's something that we've done from the perspective of, you know, building up our team and adding people to our advisory board that have experience in government and in dealing with individual jurisdictions to help us overcome that scaling barrier. Because there is it is a grassroots effort. We do have to have conversations kind of with every landfill that we're expanding into, and those conversations can take time.
Right. Okay. And with regards to municipalities themselves, how much are you thinking about how this spreads knowledge about Bitcoin, but via the medium of like climate change? Because this is something that I want to tell my kids about this, right? I think my daughter would be fascinated by this, just because climate change is something that's brought up, and there's such a combination of things that are working together for the positive. Yes. I can't find a negative. I cannot find a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, I think that probably somebody in the mainstream media will find a hole and sort of try to exploit it, but we would welcome that conversation. That's part of the reason why I'm here today, is to tell the whole story. You know, I want to tell the story of, why is Bitcoin mining the best solution to landfill methane, and it does it because it's able to monetize stranded pockets of methane that would not otherwise be able to be monetized. And then, so just by virtue of that monetization process, that provides a very concrete solution to an actual problem. And by virtue of that, municipalities, cities, counties will see the benefit that Bitcoin provides.